Hey guys, so something occurred to me uh, a few days ago about the article I read regarding Ukraine, and I remembered something. It just came to me about how that might be written, and we'll go through it. So it's this article. It was the first one I analyzed and everything, and I said it was very poetic, and I liked the way it was written. I have a feeling why that might be. Hang on, doesn't open Safari. Um, so yeah, I was going through here. I read through all of it, and I had a thought. Now I haven't tried this yet. If this is wrong, this is gonna be a very short video. I might not even post this. So and if it is, I'm not gonna go into detail, but if it is what I think it is, then I'll explain. So what I'm gonna have to do is I'm first going to have to change this to Ukrainian. Let's see what happens. Now I know you won't be able to read it, but I will be able to make some sense of it. Let's see. Um. Okay. All right. Okay. Yes. It's exactly what I thought it was gonna be. Let me go back and make sure. Uh. I'm just going back and looking. Okay. Yes. I see bits and pieces. It's interesting that this is in English right here. And these let me see if you see that on OBS. These are quotation marks in Ukrainian. So I know you can't read it, but I can see it, and it's exactly what I thought. What's going on is let me. Is there a way I can open this into a new tab and then I can show you what's going on? All right. So this is how Ukrainian works. There's different Russian works like this too, but Ukrainian, you can really get a sense of this. So what I was doing was I was looking for the word Ukraine. So you see right here, Ukraine, and then when we go over here, we will find that says Ukrainian right there. Ukraincy. Ukraincy. That's Ukrainian. Here's Ukraine right here. So that's this right here between Ukraine. Oh, that's cool. I can highlight in both tabs. So these are both Ukrainian. Oh, I mean Ukraine. The word Ukraine. Now, if we look for another one, let's see. I'll go ahead and use this one. It's Independence Day of Ukraine. Now, if we go to this one, you say Ukrainian. This is independence. I know that this is Independence Day right here. It says day, pretty much day of independence of Ukraine right here. Notice I'm saying of. It doesn't say of. I'll explain that. But you see how Ukraine is spelled in different ways depending on the contexts. So why this happens is in Ukrainian there's this thing known as cases. And in Ukrainian there are 7 cases. English used to have cases, but they don't have cases anymore. Instead, the closest thing we have to cases is pronouns. You know, words like he, she, I, stuff like that. Pronouns. Well, for every word in Ukrainian, there's a case. And there's use different ways. And instead of using cases in English, we use words like of and a. And that's why when people talk to you, if someone knows Ukrainian or Russian or even Polish, you know, you may be familiar with this if you talk to someone who knows those languages, where they don't use the words of and a. They omit those words. And I've noticed that whenever I talk to people, I get into the habit of not using of and a because of English, you know. But so what happens is those cases denote what you're actually talking about. And it's a good thing we have Atlas on, because we can actually ask ChatGPT what it is. Now how do I open it? Okay, that's how I open a new tab. They're called grammatical cases. That's with Ukrainian. Since we're analyzing Ukrainian, we're gonna say, let's analyze. Can you explain grammatical cases, especially with Ukrainian? It knows what I'm saying. It knows what I mean. Did I spell that right? Oh, just lowercase. Okay. So ChatGPT is going to explain it to you. Grammatical cases are a way languages show the role a word plays in a sentence by changing the ending of the word instead of relying only on word order. In English, you change the way the words are around. So, if, for example, right here, like I mentioned, like how it says Day Independence Ukraine, that would be Day of Independence in Ukraine, or or it would be swapped and say Independence Day of Ukraine. We would swap that in English. English barely uses them anymore, but Ukrainian uses them heavily. A lot of their poets use this. And I mentioned this in the previous video, where literally poets are used as currency in Ukrainian on the hryvnia, which sounds kind of foreign to us as Americans, but they have poets on their money. It's literally used their, poets as currency instead of leaders, which is very unusual to us, but some parts of the world are like that. Is like that. Which is why Ukrainian sentences can move words around and still keep the same meaning. Think of cases like labels or nouns, which are pronouns. That answers questions such as who, what, to whom, with what, where. Ukrainian has 7 main grammatical cases. So, this is the basic of it. You have to understand like the poetry language of how Ukrainian works to use them in sentences. So this is giving you the baseline, but you can do a lot with it. You can add you can use cases as metaphorical. You You can use them as symbolic, literal. There's different ways you can use them. And that's what Ukrainian is known for. So, the purpose is the subject of a sentence, who or what is doing the action, who or what. As you see here, Ukraina is the subject. That would be the. It says Ukraine is strong. That would be the subject. That would be the who. There's another one that says possession, absence, or quantity, whom or what. Often used after know, within, from, or of ideas. It says. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. So we have genitive, dative, the recipient of something. So when you give something away, in Ukraine, you've heard of this before, Slava Ukraini, or glory to Ukraine. You're giving glory to Ukraine, which turns the word Ukraine, which would be Ukraina, which is the default language for Ukraine, Ukraina, which is what you said, right? What you see right here as a subject, and that would be your Ukraine receives something, Ukraini. There's also accusative of whom or what, instrumental, locative, and then this is Ukrainu, talk about Ukraine, or you Misty, which Misty is the city. It means in the city. Misty is the word for city. Druje, which means friend. Uleje, Ole. Boje means God. English mostly lost this case, but Ukrainian still uses it. And that's the baseline of it. That's the understanding of cases. But if you're using it in poetry, and I'm guessing in political works, you can change what the words mean based on how you use it in a sentence. So that's how we can tell. We can read here. If we look. Between life and death. There's something about this I just realized. I'm not going to bring it up in this one, but since I've seen it, between life and death, there's something occurred to me this morning, and it deals with life and death with Ukraine. But I'm not going to talk about that in this video. I'm not going to talk about that at all. Maybe much later. So here's one, because every opponent says Ukraine must win. This was when we saw those quotation marks, and it's in English for some reason. It says Ukraine must win. Where's Ukraine? And these are using the cases we were talking about. Where's Ukraine? Like, where is it? Ukraine must win. Now, that would be. I don't know much of the case rules. And now it says all Ukraine. There's no lack of foreign regions. So Ukraine is changing meanings here. And it's interesting that it's in English that it's doing that. Of course, we've seen this whole thing in English. Ukraine wins the hearts of the entire world. Ukraine was born on maps. Ukraine, it's of course referring to the country here. But then it changes, Ukraine wins the hearts of the entire world. Are you talking about the population of Ukraine? Let's see what it says. Over here, we can use the number 33, which is mentions it twice. Here it is, 33. Tomu Ukraina. That would be the country, as I mentioned before. That's the country. Ukraina. It's also talking about the country. So it's talking about the country again. But here it's talking about Ukrainu. Alright, let's see what that says. Ukraine was born and then Ukraine was the hordes of the so it's talking about the country here. And then it says, and you not the word around its Ukrainian worldview. That would be Ukraine. Let me read. No, this would be Ukrainian. That's, I don't know all of Ukrainian. This is Putin right here, Putina. But Ukraine changes its case right here, which is all Ukraine. So all Ukraine is, it's talking about all Ukraine, but whose Ukraine is it talking about? See what I'm talking about? What does it mean by all Ukraine? Are you talking about the population? Is it talking about the Ukrainians? Who are you defining as Ukrainians? Who shoulders Ukraine stand strong? Let's see what it. Ukraine stands strong. So it's talking about the Ukraine, but at the same time, depending on how it's written in here, you could probably see, okay, it's talking about a different kind of Ukraine, and it's talking about state. So you still have that poetic language. Let's give a example of this. Let's ask. Yeah, it talks about right here. These all basically mean the same thing. Ya Lublu Ukraini. It means I love Ukraine. Ukrainu Lublu Ya, which is I love Ukraine because of Ya. Ya means I. That's I love Ukraine. Lublu Ukrainu Ya. Same thing. I love Ukraine. English can't do that with confusing the meaning. That's part of why poets are culturally speaking Ukraine. Language itself is a tool of national identity, and it's its currency. Because cases allow word order flexibility, Ukrainian poetry and rhetoric can layer meaning, rhythm, and symbolism in ways English struggles to match. This is interesting stuff because cases are the hardest things to learn. It's what makes languages hard to learn, especially like this. But when you understand, like when I'm explaining it to you like this, you can understand how cases work in practice and in function. It's very interesting. Which is why, and I was talking about Ukraine about this in a. This is a different chat, but it's talking about, which is what you were hinting at earlier with words like Americanizia and American unsam. Haven't said those before. It just means American. But it depends on how you use them. In America, if you said American, it'd be American as American as American. But you can actually use American in different ways that's different based on how it's used. So that means I love Ukraine. I was gonna translate it so I could prove that to you, but that's what it says. If you trust me enough, you believe me. So let's. It's probably gonna give us the same thing as English says, without let's see how ChatGPT can do this. I said, translate this word for word with English translation of sentences. Hopefully it understood what I just said there. I'll keep the word order and structure. We can give the closest English meaning for each word, not a smooth sentence translation. Alright, that's what I wanted. So it says, thus, like this, or doing, or warrior soldiers on all directions of fronts and of state border. Of state border. So it's talking about the state. The state. In that case, not the country itself. That was important. Let's see what it says in English. Alright, it says it here. State border shoulders stand strong. They're talking about the state there. Makes sense. Just like warriors do in all directions of front line and state border, which is symbolized by the border pillars, and Australia are symbolized by people or defenders or pillars. Those on whose shoulders Ukraine stands strong. That would be the state of Ukraine. That's the security state of Ukraine. And we see right here, which embody frontier pillars, posts, but our will and struggle fight symbolizes our people, our defenders, our supporters, or pillars, our supports or pillars, those on whose shoulders is held Ukraine. Ukraina. Wasn't it a different... Did I copy the right one? Alright, because, yeah, that was an example of the state, because you could say Ukraine as both the country and the state, depending on how the context is. If you want, I can show you something interesting about this quote. The grammatical cases are being used here are doing a lot of symbolic work. It's all about symbolism. Like I mentioned in the last, they do a lot of symbolism in the pictures that we saw in the last video. Especially instrumental and genitive, which is why Ukrainian political speeches often feel poetic, even when they're literal. So they're being literal, but you gotta read them between the lines. So what is it actually saying? Just as our warriors do in every direction on the front along the state border, which is embodied by the border post, and all will and Austria are symbolized by our defenders, our pillars of support, those upon whose shoulder Ukraine stands. Pretty much word for word what it said there. The passage is painting Ukrainian soldiers in bold guards saying, Ukrainian warriors defend the country everywhere, across the entire front and the borders. The border post represents the physical state border. But the true symbol of Ukraine's role in resistance is its people, especially the defenders. Ukraine exists and survives because of them. Ukraine stands on their shoulders. It doesn't really explain a lot of that reading between the lines. What is it not saying? Let's bold that word, not. So what is it not saying? So we can see both sides. It's doing rhetorical work that sounds very powerful in Ukrainian, but it's hard to reproduce in English. That's a good, because political and poetic often gets interpreted in ways the words themselves don't actually claim. Here are the things the passage is not saying, based strictly on the grammar and wording. It is not saying soldiers alone are Ukraine. It's saying that the people, the population, is not Ukraine. Our people are defenders. So it emphasizes defenders, but it does not say the military is the only foundation of the country. It is not saying the border posts themselves protect Ukraine. The line means the border posts represent and embody the border. It does not claim they defend it. They symbolize the physical boundary. It is not claiming ownership of people. Even though it repeatedly says Nazi, or that's rhetorical language common in Ukrainian speeches. So it's saying that the state does not claim ownership of the people. So all these are coming together, and we can use that to create something where it reads in between lines. We're seeing the actual analysis of language, or reading in between lines in real time with this. It does not literally mean people belong to the state. Exactly what I said. It means our fellow citizens are people. It is not claiming Ukraine exists only because of war. It's metaphorical. It does not literally mean the entire country depends only on soldiers. It means they are currently carrying a heavy burden for the country. And the state is speaking as them, speaking from their point of view. That's a poetic language. It says, is not attacking anyone. There is no enemy reference in the text. The speech is purely praise and moral language, not condemnation or propaganda against someone else. The simplest way to see it is the passage is praise, not doctrine. Essentially saying the physical border marks the state, not the country, but the defenders represent the spirit and resilience of the country. That's exactly what I've been saying. What it isn't saying is only soldiers matter, the state owns the people, the border posts defend a country, Ukraine exists only because of war. If you're interested, I can also show you why Ukrainian political speeches often sound unusually poetic, even when they are straightforward statements. It comes directly from how grammatical cases work in Slavic languages, which you were asking about earlier. Yeah, all Slavic languages work like this. Russian uses 3 cases. Ukraine uses 7. We're not going to get into this. This is for something else I'm doing. But yeah, you can look in here and see that kind of stuff. Because Ukraine is in each one of us. Let's look at another example. I'm just going to look for the words here. So we're going to use the word February 24 because, well, we could also use the word independence. But I'm going to use February 24 because that's the easiest one I can see. Okay, here it is. I looked at these years right here. Ukraine is about the country. The country is within us. Although you're changing the word, you're probably changing how that word is interpreted by Ukrainians. They would understand this better than what I'm telling you, but I'm giving you the idea and the functional operation of how Ukrainian works. So even though we're seeing it like this, how they interpret it would be different. If you ask someone, they'd be like, oh yeah, this means that. Of course it means that. But in English, we're seeing these cases changing around that look similar, well, they look the same, but their difference is how they're being presented in context of the entire article. Very poetic. So this looks like Day of Independence. Ukrainians in Ukraine. I'm interested on what that says in the last line. It says, Happy Independence Day, Ukrainians. Now, glory to Ukraine. Did I say glory to Ukraine? Yeah, Slava Ukraini. That's what I said, Slava Ukraini. Because Ukraine is receiving glory. That's why you got that I there. I'm interested in what this says because that does not show up in... I'm going to use Google for that. I probably could just press it and it does it for me. It says Ukrainian men and women. Ukraine. Right. Maybe it doesn't exactly mean that, but I think it's doing a lot of work there. That's Ukraini. So it could be talking about... That's very interesting. I know that means and. It's pretty much saying Ukraine and Ukraine. Ukrainian, it's saying Ukrainians and you... Wait. Oh, okay, I see. What this says... It says that, but it is implying that. So, I see it now. Ukraine, so this says Ukraine, But because you're using these, what are they called? You change the gender of the word with the last letter. So you see this is a male, this is male letter, and this is a female letter. So when you read that, you're seeing, okay, Ukraine as a man and as a female. So Ukraine man and Ukraine female. So male is on the left and this is female on the right. So it's actually saying Ukrainian men and Ukrainian women. Yeah, I can see it now. It took me a while, but yeah. I believe that's male right there and female. Oh, it says it right here. Ukrainians, men or mixed group, right? Because of the, I think it's called genitive. Yeah, it would be genitive because of gender. You is and Ukrainki it means Ukrainian women. Yeah, it's women. Yeah, I had it right. Yeah. Yeah, that's how you write in Ukrainian. Took me a while, but I was able to. I look at it for a little bit, but yeah. So I'm just gonna go ahead and translate this for you guys. It does say, in this one it says "Love Ukraine I." It means I love Ukraine. That's what it means. I told you. Ukrainian loves first world order because cases mark the rows of words. I love Ukraine neutral. Lublю Ukrainian emphasis on I. Ukrainian Lublю emphasis on Ukraine. Which is interesting because I is over here and Ukraine is over here. But yeah, you would have an emphasis on Ukraine because it's first. And you wouldn't have emphasis on love. And I love Ukraine. I love Ukraine would be neutral. Which is very interesting. It's very how that works. The speaker puts I at the end for emphasis. Almost like saying, it is I who loves Ukraine. That kind of structure is very common in poetry, speeches, and songs. So yeah, that's how Ukrainian works. For something else, I'll give you an example of this in real practical life. So let's say you're waving a flag of Ukraine. You got maybe a tattoo on your face. Your hair might be dyed white and blue, and you say, "I love Ukraine." It's interesting because we're using this same example. Perfect. Say, "I love Ukraine." You say that in English, and you say, "I love Ukraine," and you say, I support Ukraine's sovereignty. I love Ukraine. I support Ukraine's sovereignty." And you say that you support the people. Well, you're actually saying two different things there in Ukrainian. When you say that you support Ukraine's sovereignty and then you say you support the people, you're saying two different things at once. Because the people can't have sovereignty. Ukraine can have sovereignty, and you'll be talking about the state of Ukraine. You could be saying, well, the SBU, the security service of Ukraine, has sovereignty, which represents the whole state, and it's the population. So, are you supporting... you might be saying that you're supporting the population of Ukraine, the Ukrainians, but why aren't you saying you support Ukrainians and not saying support... So, it's funny like that. Not funny in a ha-ha way, but funny as in a contextual, conceptual way. Because if you say that you support the state of Ukraine, not every Ukrainian supports the state of Ukraine. Because there's people who support Um, and you have to be careful about saying that you support the population of Ukrainians or Ukraine, because then you might be saying, well, then who do you support? How do you think we get our independence and freedom from? So the state has sovereignty, which automatically it should belong to the state. But if you're talking that to a Ukrainian, they don't always agree that they get freedom from the or independence from the state. Some say, well, they get independence from. They might say it's Russia. Some might say it's from Europe. Some might say it's from the United States. You have to be very careful with how you present that information. I didn't know that until I was in Ukraine. I saw that personally. Um, there was a Ukrainian that I met who was saying, well, you can't say things. If you know Ukraine, you know this. They said, well, you can't say you support Ukraine in Kiev. You can't order a flag in Ukraine, or you can't do any of that because, or else you'll get killed, or something bad will happen to you. So that's, if you know Ukraine, that sounds weird to us, but that's, Russian propaganda. They say, well, you can't speak Russian and Ukrainian. I mean Russian and Kiev, and you can't be a foreigner who has a flag, or the Ukrainians will be in a big upset about that. You can speak Russian in Kiev. I was doing it. I heard people in front of me at McDonald's doing it. No one got upset over that. Um, so if I had gone there first, this was in Kharkiv. If I was there first, I might have believed that, and I kind of did. I had asked my friend, like, what is she talking about? He was like, oh, that's one of those people that's propagandist and all this. I was like, okay, who am I supposed to believe now? Am I supposed to believe you, or am I supposed to believe it's a thing? It's a thing. Someone right next to you can you can grow up with a friend in Ukraine, and you can own a flag, and your best friend can both support Ukraine's sovereignty and independence, but you have two different means of doing that. Like, one might say, I support, it doesn't come out in questions, but in their minds, they're thinking, well, I support Ukraine's sovereignty. You both support Ukraine, but you have different means of who grants that independence. And you might say, well, the state is not powerful enough to defend itself, so it needs Russia to go against the United States. It's a thing, But most of the people who are standing in the line, who are seeing that we had a parade, there were NATO tanks, that would be Estonia, there was European tanks, there was Poland, there were different countries together. There was even the United States. All of them were holding the national flags. People who would be there on Independence Day who were against the United States, against the state, they wouldn't be there if they supported Russia. So, yeah, it doesn't fit in the context of what was going on. So you gotta observe those kinds of things. They were flying planes. None of them Russian. They weren't holding Russian flag. No one was holding a Russian flag. No one was driving a Russian tank. There were a lot of Ukrainian tanks. There were drones. There was a lot of things, but the people there were millions. I would say thousands. It felt like millions, but there's thousands of people in the streets in just a few hours, holding flags. A lot of them were military. Yeah, I had my Ukraine flag. Um, but yeah, I was wearing my Vishivanka like I was saying uh, in previous video, and it was really it was a it was an experience. Um, um, but yeah, they would support that's supporting Ukraine, that's supporting the state, and most people, and unlike America, unlike America, the SBU, which is what I've said was the Security Service of Ukraine, they have a Facebook page, and you see a lot of times they post things like catching um, uh, people who sabotage the country or people who are terrorists who, you know, stuff like that. And they post stuff like that. I've shown a picture of them one time about the stuff they kind of post. And there's comments saying thank you and posting Ukraine emojis, Ukraine flag, heart symbols, comments. No, there's a lot of. It's part of It's patriotic for them to have to support the SBU, the state, and all that. That's a part of them. It's not about America and all this. That they're taking Russia out of all of this, and it's for the state security, which is what they're supposed to do. You know, that's a very good thing to have. It's a very strong thing that they have. Now, imagine, imagine for a moment if the CIA did that in America. Much different experience. Um, Mostly it'll be a bunch of trash talking, um, and either it's gonna be trash talking, and given the state of the America right now, people would be posting release the files. If you're American, you know what I'm talking about. If you're not American, you probably heard what's being talked about with that. Release the files in caps all the time. So you know it's gonna be a much different environment if that was if CIA had social media. Much different experience. So, and the CIA doesn't protect the state security. They support their own agendas in state. It's it's they treat themselves as if they're their own entity, and that's also a constitutional thing because they can't get involved with domestic things. Um, they always have to be foreign, so they can't be that way like the SBU is with Ukraine. So yeah, so the KGB Ukrainian SSR was always a Ukrainian KGB was always about the Ukrainian sovereignty. That's always what they were about. So just changing in this in a way that you can see for Americans and for Europe, it's the same thing, different package. I was just reading something on Discord. Um, but yeah, I just wanted to talk about that and see if that was true. So yeah, I'm glad that I was able to do this another long video because I was thinking if I was wrong about that, I kind of feel I was right. I was pretty much 99% sure I was right about that. I just want to make sure. Or else this video would have been like 6 minutes long, and I might have probably wouldn't even wasted my time releasing it. So, guys, you learned a little bit how Ukrainian works, and so yeah, so yeah, so I guess I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye for now.